now become the front line of freedom. There have been dangerous domestic elements, aided by those from China and North Korea, that want to seize power. And as we all know, they had filed 36 impeachment motions to paralyze an elected government. They impeached and removed the president, Yoon Suk-yeol. They then impeached the acting president. And after that, they threatened to impeach the replacement for the acting president. Now they are trying President Yoon for insurrection, a charge that carries the death penalty. And that leads us to where we are today. As Morse said, there is an election, June 3. Elections, as Morse said, are foundational. This one is absolutely critical because right now, so much is at stake. What's at stake? Well, nothing less than the continuation of South Korea's democracy and perhaps the continuation of the South Korean state. That's what makes June 3 so important, because everyone has to ensure that this is not the last election in South Korea's history. That's the summary, and let's get started. And the topic is election fraud. The issue of election fraud didn't start with President Yoon's impeachment and removal. It didn't even start in the 2020 National Assembly elections. But that's where we'll begin today. The balloting in 2020 resulted in unexpected and overwhelming victories for leftist candidates, as early voting tipped district after district in their favor. When you had so many uniformly narrow victories go to the leftists, that was statistically improbable. At the time, an observer said, either God did it or there was ballot rigging. Well, in all probability, it wasn't the Almighty. In all probability, it was humans. And some of those humans actually came from China. We know that the National Election Commission, in their infrastructure, used equipment from Huawei Technologies, the Chinese company. And we also know that Huawei Technologies equipment is susceptible to interference from Beijing. But there was also reported, unconfirmed, but there was reported that the leftists cooperated with Tencent, which is a Chinese internet giant, to develop an algorithm to switch votes that had been cast in the early voting. And indeed, South Korea had a system that looked like it was designed to be susceptible to ballot rigging because of the early voting features. 2 years after that was a presidential election. President Yoon was selected, but his margin was much narrower than people thought it would be. Certainly the polling and the election results didn't match. And in 2024, there were again National Assembly elections, this time giving the leftists an unprecedented majority in the National Assembly. And in 2024, like in 2020 and 2022, the polling